How's it going?
Good, Kayla. How are you?
Good. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So, the first question that I have is, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your past and what you're up to in present day?
Hmm. Okay, well, hello. My name is Jax Rula. I am right now the artistic director of the Three Sisters Cultural Center in St. Jacobs, which is a wonderful project that my sisters and I created, where we took an old tire garage and we converted it into a place that artists can work and sell from the same space. That was a ton of fun. I am also an artist myself. I work in fabric and I create art dolls. Of course, I also have a history of, before I was found my artistic avenue, a gallery owner. I used to run a gallery in Uptown Waterloo. So have been an avid supporter of the arts and an art collector myself for many years.
So, can you tell me a little bit more about what the Three Sisters Cultural Center is?
Sure. We really, like I said, wanted to create a place that artists can work and sell from the same space. So as an artist, I have spent many years obviously going through the process of trying to sell work and sell my husband's work. He's an abstract artist. And what we found over the years is that artists are always expected to do crazy things. We're expected to take these one of a kind things that we lovingly create and take them out into the rain and the wind and the snow and the terrible heat and the sun, out into fields, out into parking lots, out into, to try to sell them for a day. And it's as far as I'm concerned, it's just not right. It's not right. Also, this whole process of saying that you're here to support the artists by, getting them out of their studio into classrooms to do babysitting work for you, to, give their work away for free for great exposure and all that kind of stuff. It's just, it doesn't help an artist. What helps an artist is to buy their work and to actually meet them in their space so they can continue working while they're not selling. They're in their space, they're actually making art, because that's actually what an artist wants to be doing. They want to be in their space making art. And then if they can make a sale without having to lug their entire collection around someplace or damage it or anything, then that's actually what helps an artist. So that's what we wanted to create.
I think that's awesome. And definitely a good point is that artists go through so much, and it's just nice when you can have a nice dedicated space to sell your art.
Yeah. Yeah. So the Three Sisters is actually, it was an old tire garage. So I'm a sucker for a beautiful old building. We lovingly transformed it and opened it up. And so the front of the building has these studios. Each of the artist studios has a sink, a window that opens, because sticking them in a closet is no fun. Really nice light, no fluorescence, because fluorescent light is hard on the brain and on art. Lots of natural light. And most importantly here is a door that locks, so that when an artist is not there, and by no means do we tell artists that they have to be there during retail hours. When an artist is not there, they know that their space is safe and secure.
That's awesome. I think you put a lot of thought into it. The next question would be, how did the Three Sisters Cultural Center form? Like, how did it come to be?
Well, I'm an artist and have been an artist for a long time. And my little sister, who is our boss, of course, she specializes in tourism and destination development. She has been working for quite some time down in Hamilton, although we have been born and raised here in Waterloo. Her desire was to be able to bring her expertise for tourism and destination development into our community. And of course, my desire was to create the perfect place to work and sell. Our older sister, she helped us with a lot of funding at the beginning of this so that we could get the ball rolling. I think one of the things that our collectives suffer from is something that gets talked about, I guess, a little bit. It's called gentrification. Of course, artists always play that starving artist card idea, so that they move into a derelict place, a place that nobody's paying any attention to. They bring in their life, their energy, their vibrancy. They fix the place up. They make it look gorgeous. And of course, that's when all the landlords turn around and go, ooh, I can make money here, and they raise the rents and they sell the buildings and they rent it out to other people, and the artists get pushed out. That's a terrible, terrible thing. I was the chair of an artist collective where we were gentrified out of, I think, about 4 or 5 spaces in less than a 3-year period, and it's hard. It's hard on artists when you're just finally getting settled and are given less than 2 weeks notice to move because the landlord's decided he can now make money off of his derelict space. In order for us to get the kind of funding and support that we required to create this artistic endeavor, we formed a not-for-profit, and we started grant writing. And in order for the granting bodies to trust us enough to want to give us money, we had to prove to them that we had like a 10-year lease somewhere, which is really not an easy thing to do. So in order to do that, we really needed to secure the property ourselves, lease it to ourselves as the not-for-profit, so we could actually say, here's a 10-year lease. We promise we're not going to kick ourselves out. And then the granting bodies decided to start taking us seriously and helped our initial year with a quite substantial amount of funding.
Thank you. And that's a lot of good actionable advice for people to take. So I really appreciate you talking about all that. My next question is, do you believe that community helps foster success?
Yes, yes, I do. I mean, we are a cultural center. We are here in support of the community. We can cross our fingers and hope that the community in which we serve wants to turn around and support us at the same time. In that regard, being able to take our expertise, as you know, it's funny when you talk about social media, it's so easy to talk about that term, creating content and content development. But I'm a little old lady, I'm sorry to say. So before the social media, when we create content, we're actually talking about physical events and experiences and happenings. And so as we create that, we hope, we cross our fingers that is something that the local community will be interested in so that they can partake in it. We also hope that the local governing bodies, the region, the cities, the townships will also find value in that content that we create and turn around and support us. And so a great example of this just happening in a wonderful way was the Kissing Bridge art tour that just happened on the weekend. We've created this beautiful cultural center. We're happily trucking along with our programming. This group of artists approach us. They've been an ad hoc collective for 20 years. And when I say ad hoc, I mean ad hoc. Like the whole idea when you look at a group of artists like that, when you say to them, I want you incorporated as a not-for-profit, they all just, what? They panic and run away, right? This ad hoc collective of artists were creating the Kissing Bridge Trail Studio Art Tour for 20 years on their own with no government support, no anything like that. And of course, the pandemic was not easy on anybody. They approached us. So we are now a fine-tuned, not-for-profit grant writing and funding machine. A not-for-profit is an interesting thing. I myself have created several of them in my lifetime, this just being the most recent one. It's well worth the endeavor. It's well worth the work. I think it would be really nice if someone actually taught in school, how do you create a corporation? What are the steps do you need to go through to secure a name, to secure documents, to register for HST, to what do you need in order to start grant writing? How do you create your financials? What does a balanced budget look like? What does it mean? All of these are things that artists, they want to be in their studio making art. They don't want to have to take a business course. And crazy enough that none of that information is actually even taught until you reach university, right? Which is sad and it's silly. So this group came to us and said, adopt us, and came under our fold. And right away we started writing grants and approaching the township and approaching the region and So we actually managed to raise some nice funding for them. We didn't have a lot of time this round, but we managed to raise enough funding to be able to put on the Kissing Bridge art tour with now 50 artists over 10 venues over the 2 days, plus a launch party. Good job on us.
Wow, that's awesome.
Right now, because that just happened over the weekend. This is my day off, so but job well done. I think it was very successful. I'm about to go through the next phase, which they don't teach you in school, and that's how do you now report back to those funding bodies of whether the project was a success or failure or not. So I'm going to spend the next 2 weeks gathering all the data points and all the information, crafting a good-looking report, and getting that all out to our granting bodies so that they feel confident to be able to support us in our next project.
That's so awesome.
Did that answer your question? I can't even remember what your question was.
I mean, we were just talking about community, and I think that's a perfect example.
Okay, good.
And also, I think it's a really good point that you touched on about, I feel like a lot of people, especially younger people, when they're looking at their lives and like the path that they could take, a lot of times starting a nonprofit is not just something that's on their mind. Like they don't even realize that it's really an option for them. Like they don't know the steps. It's all this mysterious thing, and it's like that's something someone else does. You know, they don't realize that they could do it themselves. So I think it's really good to I get not advertised, but put out the idea that is something that people could do.
Yeah, and it is relatively simple, and in fact, it doesn't actually initially cost that much money either to get a not-for-profit status for a corporation. Yeah, it's just you got to do the paperwork, right? But that's all about.
The pesky paperwork, but it's not impossible. It can be done. I'm just curious, this isn't one of my questions that I had written down, but does the Three Sisters Cultural Center do workshops on grant writing?
I guess I'm gonna just respond by saying yes. My sister Adrienne, who is our boss, she's really, really good at it, and she is now being contracted through the Regional Tourism of Ontario bodies to do grant writing workshops online and that sort of thing, because she deals with a lot of tourism and sort of that sort of thing. So she's already got that rolling. And actually what I'm going to do over the winter is produce a series of workshops. I mean, we could put them online, but I really like the face-to-face thing where artists can actually come up to the Three Sisters and take a workshop on how to be professional in your artistic endeavors. How do you create an invoice? How do you properly string a canvas? How do you present yourself professionally to a gallery? How do you set yourself up for an art show? All of that sort of thing.
I think that's awesome. I think, the thing with the internet these days is all this information is available somewhere online, but sometimes people don't even know what to look for. So I think it's really good when someone comes through and is like, these are the things that you might want to be thinking about, and this is how I can help you. So I think that's really great.
Well, yeah, and when we're working with artists, the artists that I know, and there are a lot of digital and online artists, but the artists that I know, they like a tactile experience. That's why they're doing art. They want to get their hands dirty. They want to chip at wood. They want to work with paint. They want to play with beads and color and fabric. So there's a very tactile learning process that goes on there. And online, I don't know. COVID was not friendly for me online. I actually find this type of a communication very difficult. I much prefer to meet people face to face, to shake their hands, to have a conversation with them. This kind of just feels like watching TV, which doesn't really register in my brain the same way. And I wonder how, if that's the same for other people or not. I don't know.
No, I understand that. It does feel rather detached. And I'm sorry that I couldn't make it out there today to...
No, not a problem. It's my day off. I'm kind of still in my pajamas, so...
So maybe it works out. But yeah, it is different, definitely. And there's some people who just don't learn this way, especially. So it's good to offer those in-person workshops. My next question is, what aspects of DIY would you say the Three Sisters Cultural Center uses? And so what I mean by that is this aspect of do it yourself, which all of this so far has been, you guys are just doing it yourself. So I don't know if there's anything you can think of for this question.
Oh, it's an interesting question. As an artist, I am incredibly frugal. I do not spend money where I don't have to. Like the second Apple decided it wants me to subscribe to their music system, that was it. I pitched that right away. Like, you making me pay monthly for music I already own? No, no way, not happening. So when it comes to things like, a website or social media or anything like that, as an artist, and I think most artists are the same, we're used to working on our own. We're used to problem solving. We artists are very isolated creatures. It wouldn't really occur to us to go hire somebody over actually learning how to do the thing yourself and doing it. In a way, that can be difficult because if it's so overwhelming, if you're thinking, if you want to create a website, but you don't even know where to begin. So you're just not going to do a website. You're going to set up your Facebook page instead or whatever. In a way, it can stop an artist. But I have been a do-it-yourselfer since, oh girl, you're going to date me, since the 80s. Okay. I wrote my first website in HTML in the mid 90s, just when that whole idea of the internet started. Like, we're going to really predate you, life before the internet. And it was a big thing. But yeah, I got myself a book called, HTML for Dummies. And I wrote my first website. So being a do-it-yourselfer is something that I personally am just geared to do. Sometimes it's so much easier just to do it yourself than to try to explain to somebody else the vision that you have. And it can be very difficult if the communication skills are just not available and if the person that you're talking to just doesn't get it. Building the Three Sisters was fascinating because, like I say, I love an old building, but at the same time, my sister and I had a vision, and trying to communicate that to the architects and to the builders was not an easy task. But there we were not about to do that ourselves. I'm not about to start climbing ladders and hammering and all that kind of stuff. We needed permits, so it needed to be done by other people. That was a challenge. That was a real challenge, to find the right kind of people to do it and the people who saw the vision. So a whole nother thing. What happens is that we essentially sat as our project managers on that entire thing to make sure that our vision remained clear and pure, and we ended up with something that we wanted at the end of it. But no, art and artists and do it yourself, they go hand in hand. That's what we all do.
Definitely. How has the Three Sisters Cultural Center helped you in your own art career?
Oh, I laughed. It's interesting because I was actually giving a talk about my art to a group just last night, and one of the questions that came forward was, is this your only artistic endeavor, making dolls? And I had to laugh because since we started this project, I haven't actually made a single doll. Now my artistic endeavor is really focused on creating art festivals. What have I done in the last 2-3 years of building this set? Well, we built a cultural center, which is, if you come down to the space, you'll see that the whole center itself is an artistic endeavor. We created the Weft Fest, which is Woolwich Expression and Fibre Traditions, which is a fiber arts festival that went on for 10 days over 5 venues throughout St. Jacobs. So the art festival itself, I would consider to be an artistic endeavor at this point. Being asked to take on the Kissing Bridge Art Tour was itself an artistic endeavor. I have taught myself how to create online art auction software and navigating that and producing that. So I think we've done about 5 or 6 art auctions over the last 3 years or so. And in itself, just running a business can be an artistic endeavor, especially when the business itself is focused on artistic expression and supporting the artists and artistic endeavors in the community. So it's an interesting question and begs the definition of what is art.
Definitely. There's so many different ways that you can use your artistic skills. And what I'm getting from this is that it seems like it's a lot of work, but it also sounds very much worth it. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, it is. There's a few, I mean, that's an interesting question because it begs us to ask the question of what is life about, right? What are we trying to do here on this planet? I'm a firm believer in the fact that life carries absolutely no meaning except for the meaning that we give it. And so that means that every day when you wake up, you have to decide to give your life meaning. And what does that look like? So if I want to be healthy and well into my late 90s, I know that I have to maintain a sense of purpose in my life. I have to maintain a sense of accomplishment in my life. I have to maintain good relations with the people that I work with and play with in my life, as well as, of course, exercise, diet, and sleep. Really, then you start talking about a life as an art form, right? Like, how do we turn our experience here into an art form? Do we just take that crappy job because we've decided that it's all about a sense of security, money, and a mortgage? Well, if that's your choice, good on you. But we spend a lot of our time working, don't we? We spend a huge percentage of our lives in our working endeavors. I have often, in the spur of the moment decision, taken the harder path because I know that in the long run, I will get more of a sense of purpose and accomplishment from it.
That's so inspiring. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, and the next question is, what advice would you have for young artists who might want to start their own artist collective?
It's a good question. I think, for me, I've run all sorts of different businesses beyond artist collectives and all sorts of different art style businesses, art production businesses, galleries. For me, my favorite day on all of that is choosing the name. And now, of course, it's complicated by the fact that the name you choose for whatever it is you're about to do, you have to go and find if you can get the URL on it, right? And then once you figure out if you can get the URL and secure the URL, then you go and actually do what is required to secure the name and start the incorporation process. A collective is interesting. As an artist, I have often thought that I have tattooed across my forehead does not play well with others. Committee work is hard. So if you don't have that sensibility of relaxation around that, of allowing other people to bring their talents to the table and flourish in those talents, if you're the kind of person who expects your towels folded in a certain way and you can't have anyone else sort and fold your towels, I'm going to suggest it's not a good choice for you. that when you come into a collective, you may have a vision, but the collective itself drives the final product. When you create, in the process of creating a not-for-profit, truly all you need are 3 people. You need a president, a treasurer, and a secretary. So the center itself isn't necessarily a collective. As a not-for-profit, we have a board. We have a board of 9 people. Wonderful collection of people who are just thrilled to be able to back us up with what we're doing. But at the beginning and end of the day, the bosses are the 3 of us. That's what makes things happen. Other things that happen within the framework of the not-for-profit can be collectives, like the Kissing Bridge Art Tour that we just did. That was handed to us from another group, so I understand that they have their own vision for it and they have their own desire. We lend the talents and skills that we can, and together hopefully we're going to make something greater than the sum of its parts. But sometimes it's just easier just to go and do a thing than to have to it passed a committee. So, my suggestion would be to make sure that if you are coming together in a collective, that you actually choose your group well, and that you start with a common sense of purpose, that you're all on the same page as to what it is the collective is going to do. Because if you don't clarify that at the very beginning, very shortly, you're going to realize that some thought you were going to be doing this thing and some thought you were going to be doing that thing. And now every time you get together, you're fighting. And you know what? Life's too short. Life's just too short for that, right?
Definitely. I think that's really good advice. It's good to keep in mind that, you're not operating on your own, and you might have to make compromises, and definitely people should be on the same page. Otherwise, that's going to be very confusing very fast. Okay, next question would be, what kind of goals does the Three Sisters Cultural Center have? And these could be short-term goals or long-term goals.
There's a difference between our personal goals, what we want to get out of the project, and the goals that we have set for the cultural center as an entity. So I think I'm going to focus on the cultural center as an entity here, because it's designed so that at some point my sisters and I can retire from this and hand it over to the next collective that comes. That's what a not-for-profit is kind of built on. Somebody else can come in, become its president, and off they go. For the cultural center itself, we did get some wonderful funding in our very first year. We were super lucky, believe it or not, to be doing this during the pandemic, because that's when everybody across the world said, "Oh, artists, save us." Oh my God, I have to be at home alone with my thoughts. I can't bear it. Artists, save us. And so the governments, provincial, federal, whatever, they started pouring a lot of funding into artistic endeavor. Now, of course, at the end of the pandemic, when they are jostling for re-election and jostling for recovery packages, the artistic endeavors have dropped right off. The funding for artistic endeavors has become really, really hard to get. One of the goals for the center would be to find sponsorship, to find not only regional, provincial, city, and township sponsorship. What we would like to hope, and this is where sometimes dealing with artists is difficult, because an artist starts to sweat when you say $60. And what we're looking for is funding of at least $100,000 a year in sponsorship. My sister, who works in the tourism industry, says that should not be a problem, that we should be able to find sponsorship of at least $100,000 a year just to operate the center. The problem with getting funding for grants and not-for-profits is nobody wants to fund operating expenses. They always want to fund special events, and then they always expect us to reinvent the special event every year and come up with something new, which is really not an easy task.
Like, if something works once, you have to scrap it and just do something different.
Well, yeah, and what we want is to create a tradition. I want to create a tradition where the Fibre Arts Festival we put on in the spring becomes the best in Ontario, the best in Canada, which means that I need to focus on the formula of what makes it right until I polish it. If I keep tossing in new stuff all the time, the public itself gets confused as to what it is that they're dealing with. For the center itself, for the Three Sisters itself, our goal is to actually get the province, the region, the city, and the township to actually buy the building, so that we don't have to worry about rent. Because no governing body wants to help us with operation fees, we at this point are just hell-bent on creating an extraordinary amount of programming so that we can then ask for funding to support the programming, and our salaries can be generated out of that. But that's a task. Now we're not actually creating programming. What we're doing is we're strategizing and writing for grants. And so now there always has to be a push and pull between are grant writing and trying to gain funding, as opposed to actually being able to produce programming and spend funding. So there you go.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's a very fair goal to have. So you talked about your goals with the Three Sisters Cultural Center. What about your personal goals?
I want to be paid for this work. I am not being fully paid for this work. Like, I am so below minimum wage, it's silly. But we can see that it's building, so we just keep working. I'm kind of lucky in a place where I'm not overly struggling to pay a mortgage and to feed myself, although it's getting a little bit difficult with the way food prices are going. I, as a personal goal, would love to be appropriately paid to be artistic director. Wow.
Yeah, I think you deserve that so much.
Oh, thank you. I would also like my other sisters to be appropriately paid for the work that they're putting into this as well. And the trick is to get the community, to get all of these governing bodies to see the value in what we're producing and what that does for the community, and to ante up.
So how can interested artists get involved with the Three Sisters Cultural Center?
They can go to threesisterscenter.ca and check out all of our call for entries. Anybody can rent the event space that the place is based on. At the back of the building, we have created the best party room ever. It's fantastic. And it is really designed to do art receptions in, as well as other parties. So if artists are actually busily writing for their own grants, say to the Regional Waterloo Arts Fund or something like that, they can contact us and say, what would it cost for me to exhibit in your space? And we will give them a support letter that does an overview of those expenses. They can build that into their grants. They can get the governing body to support them so that they can rent the event space from us, which is a lovely round circle, because then that helps the Three Sisters stay alive and well. It's really, really important that everybody understands, as an artist, that you should stop giving your work away for free. Okay? Here it is. And a friend of mine said this to me, and I will repeat it to the day's end until everybody hears it. When somebody approaches an artist and says, give me your stuff for free, it's great exposure. As a Canadian artist, you can say to them, I am sorry, here in Canada, people die of exposure. Artists deserve to be paid. You deserve to be paid for your talent, your skill, your work. And you should stop giving yourselves away for free, because when you give yourself away for free, everybody then expects every other artist to give their stuff away for free. And what's happening is people are now expecting us as an artistic cultural center to give our services away for free. And we're not doing that, and we can't do that. I refuse to do that.
Definitely. I think that's a really good note to touch on. And also, it just makes me think about how, there's so many cheap reproductions that we could buy that might look similar to something that an artist can make with their hands, but it's really just this cheap printed thing. And so people think, I can get this for $5. Why is that worth $300? There's this misunderstanding, and I think the more artists cave to that and keep dropping their prices, just the worse it'll be. So I appreciate you talking about that.
You're welcome.
Okay, I think that's everything that I want to talk about, and I really appreciate all the notes that you said. Thank you so much for meeting with me.
Oh, you're very welcome. It was my pleasure. Thanks so much for including me in this.
Next time I go to St. Jacobs, I will definitely come check out the Three Sisters Cultural Center. And I hope that everyone else does too, because it sounds amazing.
Yeah, we have a lot of programming. We have a lot of workshops. We have a lot of parties, all sorts of things, always on the go. So threesisterscenter.ca, check it out, buy your tickets, start participating. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Bye now.
Nice meeting you.